here we go.
Put it on the beside us on the page so that we can read it as we go.
Yes, yeah, I'll get to that in just, but yes,
Okay,
I can do
because
that.
I'm trying to read it on my phone. That's not.
It's hard. I agree.
I didn't
Okay.
print it out.
All right. Well, I'm calling this meeting back into order. We've been in recess since last Thursday evening, April 26th. And so I want to just make April 6th. What did I say?
I thought you said 26, but I could be.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm pretty sure it was this. Yeah, it was April 6th. So we're back from that recess, and let me just call roll for people to make sure that we have a quorum. Deb McCarthy.
Here.
Bob Baker.
Here.
Maria Russo.
Here.
Judy Stevens.
Here.
Ray Whiting.
Here.
Selena Vickers. Here. Matt Halterman. It's my understanding that he had to work this evening. He's absent. And also I wanted to inform you, if you were not already aware, that our chair and our one of our male representatives from Congressional District 2, Shannon Azanzandi, resigned yesterday. So with the committee's permission, I'll I'll get the effective notice out to for both the election to have another member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee from Congressional District 2, and also our next meeting where we will elect a chair.
Okay, now we're really only advertising for one person, correct?
We are. Yes. So what the State Executive Committee elects that. So we'll notice that to the State Executive Committee, and then we'll notice amongst it'll be a public notice, but for our committee to elect a chair, we'll give 30-day notice for that. So I'll set a meeting of that, and I'll make sure that it's after the, should it be? Well, let me ask you this question. We're going to have another meeting that is, let's see, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We could have a meeting on May the 11th, which will be before the State Executive Committee. Ron, State Executive Committee, we still think that's going to be May 13th.
Yes, that's the anticipated, yes.
Okay, so we're scheduled to meet on May the 11th, Thursday, May the 11th. So we could have an election for our chair on May the 11th, or we could postpone that, wait till the State Executive Committee elects another person to this committee, and then have our election for a chair on May the 25th.
I think it would make sense to wait till May the 25th so that we have a full committee to do the electing. And also to give a 30-day notice for May the 11th, you'd have to give it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow. So you could notice the 25th and anytime between now and the 25th of April.
I've actually gotten really good at doing notices, so that part didn't bother me, but I agree.
Okay.
I would like to have a full committee as well. I think that's a very good point. Okay, so we'll notice that for May the 25th. Okay. All right. So we were in the middle of, well, maybe not in the middle, we were at the tail end of looking at some proposed bylaws the last time. And what we decided that we wanted to come back to spend a little bit more time on the county committee section, and then any other cleanup that anybody thought we had to do, that we would go ahead and look at that. And again, this is our last meeting before the State Executive Committee meets to look at this stuff. So let's try to, just get as much done as we can tonight. Now, if there's anything that's just, that people absolutely don't like and we don't have agreement on, we'll just, we don't, it's not like we don't want to rush anything through that's not ready. Okay. All right. Let me find. I have a hard time finding. Maybe it's here because I was looking. Yeah. All right. Can everybody see the screen where it says rough draft?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. So as we look over this, keep in mind that anything that is red with a white background is new language that we're considering. Actually, just ignore this because that's not correct anymore. The green strike through is things that we've already agreed we're going to strike. And anything red that is in green highlight is language that we've already adopted. Okay. So this is a little complicated. I want to go down to the easy stuff first, if that's okay. I think it's the easy stuff. Let's look at the diversity section first. This is a relatively new section that was adopted, I think, in March of 2021. This was kind of came out of that memorandum of understanding. And in my opinion, I'm very, very happy that it was in here, but it did not. I think that it left a lot of things that was unclear related to the caucuses and different things like that. So I thought just a little cleanup of this would be helpful. So here in the beginning, the purpose of developing an affirmative action committee is to encourage participation. And this language right here is basically taken out of the national charter, with the exception of seniors. We added seniors in here. Bob suggested, I thought was a good suggestion, to, instead of using the language disabled individuals, that we put persons with disabilities, and just, make that language a little more, I don't know, sensitive. And then as we come down here, the Affirmative Action Committee shall consist of 2 co-chairs of different genders elected by members from each of the following currently existing Democratic, I think we could take the word Democratic out, diversity caucuses.
Selena,
Uh-huh.
I just noticed the committee's repeated on both sides of the parentheses there too. It only used to be once.
Yeah. I think it was, you're right. You're absolutely right. So I'm gonna take that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it lists the different, specific different diversity caucuses. This AAPI needs to be spelled out, which is Asian American Pacific Islanders, and then that is AAPI. Black, Latin. I need to check with Kim Felix on make sure that I think that LATIN is what they are using for the what I consider the Latin caucus. But that's just a small technicality. LGBTQ plus, persons with disabilities, senior, women, and youth. Now it's important.
Probably seniors too.
Seniors. Okay. Okay, thank you. And what it said instead was constituency organizations set forth in the affirmative action and outreach plan. And so this just makes it clear that these are existing caucuses, which they are. So the co-chairs will be chosen by members of that diversity caucus. The 2 co-chairs of different genders shall be elected by the members of the AA committee at its first meeting, just prior to the organizational meeting. to terms of 4 years to expire at the election of their successors. There to be no more than one co-chair from the same diversity caucus. So that's all the recommended changes or amendments to that diversity section. Now, I do believe that when we come back after the executive committee and do additional work, I think there's definitely some additional work that we need to do in here to provide some more direction for the diversity caucuses. But for right now, I think it just kind of cleans up some loose language in this section. But let me open this up for discussion and consideration.
I have a quick question, Selena, and maybe you all thought through this in the drafting committee. So I'll start by asking you and see if this was thought of. Just since in the earlier language, it kind of included any constituency organizations set forth by the plan, but then in these changes, we kind of listed them out instead, which I think it's great we listed them out. But let's say hypothetically in the future, any identity groups were added to this. Would that require like a full bylaws revision? Like, is there any language we could put in there, for example, that says, and any other identity group within the affirmative action plan or anything like that, that would kind of cover if any other groups were added?
That is a really good question. And that's exactly the conversation that Bob and I had when we were discussing this. So yes, I think that we should, add some different language. I think that we need to create a way that other either councils or caucuses, and there's like a little bit of difference between those two, but councils and caucuses can create. Let's say that a bunch of environmentalists want to get together and they want to have an environmental council, or one of the things I'd really like to see is like a poverty council. Maybe anyway, you're right. Yeah. So there's other groups that maybe the Veterans Council or a Labor Council or something like that. And so how do those groups come into play? So one, we need to figure out what is the criteria for them, which I think will take a long conversation that we can figure out later. But yes, but it would create, we would need to have, I believe, a bylaw change to create additional caucuses and councils, and we should do that. However, in terms of affirmative action, they're in the charter. These, except for seniors, every one of these are listed in the charter as what they call historically underrepresented groups, that these are the primary groups that we want to make sure that they have appropriate representation on the state executive committee, within the party, and that sort of thing. So I think that while we do want to create other caucuses and even be considerate of maybe it's a diversity caucus that we want to, make sure they have representation, I would hesitate a little bit, or probably a lot, of, let's say we have an environmental council, and I don't necessarily think that the environmental council should be a part of the affirmative action committee. I think they should exist, and we have to figure out how they have a voice in the party, but I don't necessarily they should be on the affirmative action committee. I think that group of people that have been identified as historically underrepresented groups should do that. But you're asking all the questions that are, I think, the right questions to ask, and we have to figure out how to do that. I don't feel like we have to do that right now, but I think that we absolutely have to have that conversation, because our whole goal is, to bring more and more people into the party and figure out how they can organize and participate. I hope that answered your question, because I probably gave too much information there.
No, helpful. And I think that's something, I'm just trying to anticipate too, like what questions the full executive committee may have at the full meeting as well. And I think that's one that could come up, but I think as long as we state like, this is what it is for now, and this is what we, hope to include, or this is the pathway that we'll have for other groups moving forward, or just maybe not identity groups, but like you're saying, the councils and things of that sort. So I just kind of wanted to flag it, but I think that's great to say, you know, we might have a bit of work that we'll take on later. So awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts?
I would just add that one reason why we listed it is because although Native Americans are a minority group that needs to be encouraged to be in full participation, we have hardly any Native Americans, and the Native American caucus actually dissolved itself last fall. So we're going to have to figure out criteria for recreating a caucus, what it means in terms of number of people involved and how they do business, I guess.
Even though they aren't an active caucus at this point, that there aren't that many of the Native Americans, shouldn't we include that caucus just in case there are Native Americans that come forward?
Well, it
Instead of having
doesn't
to add
currently
it later.
exist. It doesn't currently exist. We'd have to figure out how they could reform.
Because I've had people tell me that they are Native Americans who would be interested, but that there's no place for them.
Ah,
And that's the reason why, you know, if we're going to list all these other things, then Native American ought to be one of them too, in my opinion. Matter of fact,
So how could we, let's try to figure out language that we could put that in there, that that there's the potential of creating that caucus, that specific caucus, because that we know that that's a historically underrepresented group, that they have the potential for that caucus without saying that it's a currently existing caucus, because it's not. They did exist and then they dissolved. Can anybody think of some language that would, because I agree, I like that idea. I think if we do have Native Americans who can form that caucus and do that outreach, we want that to happen.
Say something like, or including but not limited to those groups, and in addition, groups such groups as historically underrepresented groups, such as Native American. You know, you could list several others that are named within the charter. How many?
All of them are there. Every one of them are there except
Native
for
American.
senior. Yeah, that the only one that we have a caucus for that is not in the charter is senior. So we could just specifically say something about the Native American, that there is potential for them to create a caucus.
there was a senior group when they first formed the caucuses.
Oh, we still have a senior caucus. I'm just saying, like,
It wasn't on, okay.
in terms of the ones that are in the charter, we got all this covered, except seniors was added in there, and the only other one is Native. This language up here, this language right here is the language other than seniors, that is basically taken directly out of the charter.
So maybe the hang up is currently existing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can change that to say currently active diversity caucuses, which may
It says currently existing.
currently active diversity caucuses, which may include blah, 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 and then put Native Americans in there. by the members of each of the following currently active diversity caucuses: Asian, Black, Latine, LGBT, persons with disabilities, seniors, women, and youth, including Native Americans, which is not
I mean, I'm wondering if we could just have this other little caveat that says something like, I mean, this is just me. I'm not saying these words are the words because I don't think they are the words, but something to the effect of, in the event, or we reserve the right to add Native American caucus to the Affirmative Action Committee, in the event that one is formed and approved by the State Executive Committee. So, so it's being very, very clear that if one exists and if it's approved, they would automatically be members. We don't have to rewrite the bylaws to that they are part of this Affirmative Action Committee. They would automatically be a part of it. But also being clear that they're not, that it doesn't exist right now.
How about
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
just a quick one? Members from each of the existing diversity caucuses, list them. Oh gosh, I had a thought, now I lost it. Existing diversity caucuses, list them, and include Native Americans. They don't exist, but they have the potential to exist.
Let me suggest this. After youth, why don't we put a semicolon and then say, as well as the Native American caucus, should it form?
Okay, I've got another one to throw at you.
Okay, hold on. I want to put this up here and also want to put heads up here and we'll look at all of them. Wasn't you said should it form?
Should it, or reform, whichever makes the most sense.
Okay, and then, okay, so I'm gonna just sort of like
Again.
I'm gonna put these in different colors so we know what our options are. Okay, I'm gonna put that in blue. And then Deb, you said to just include them in this list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on just 1 second.
Yeah, the blue just disappeared.
How about from each of the, from each of the following caucuses which may exist?
My idea is kind of short, but including any such underrepresented caucuses not listed upon approval.
Hold on. Okay. Including
Any such underrepresented caucuses not listed upon approval. Because you don't know how many
So
others are going to come out.
I have a question. As caucuses are developed and formed, and they are not created in the bylaws, do we have to go back to the bylaws and change the bylaws to reflect what has happened? As an example, if Native Americans form 3 months from now, do we have to go back to the bylaws and include them as an existing caucus.
That's why I wrote that way. That way we wouldn't have to go back to it.
Yeah,
Well,
well, it makes it cleaner to
I
deal
think
with.
both of these right now, the blue, and Deb, it's not that I'm trying to ignore you. I'm just trying, I don't know how to put yours into.
Yeah, don't worry
And
about it.
highlight it. I don't want you to think don't think it should be considered. I do. So the Bobs in here, as well as the Native American caucus, should have forum. I think that covers it. Like, we don't have to come back. We might want to come back and make it a little, include them in the existing ones at that time, but this covers it. This would make them automatically a member of the AAC, as well as the Judy's suggestion, including any such underrepresented group not listed, and then that would be comma upon approval. Now, and like I said, of the historically underrepresented groups, they're all covered. We have every one of them covered, except for Native American. That's the only one that's listed in the charter that's not listed. So I think either one of these would work, but I think this blue one, I think would make it clear that we're not ignoring Native Americans, Democrats, because it specifically says that. It also kind of signals that we would like them to form, so that we could have that representation. So, but I think either one of those would work. And I like this idea.
I like naming Native American so it's not kind of ambiguous. We have stated what the caucus is in the charter, and that they are, I think this is kind of welcoming. We would like them to be here.
Yeah, I do too. So what if are we okay? So Judy, are you okay with this specific to Native American?
Yes,
Okay.
I was just trying to
I know, yeah, it was
be
good.
all inclusive, because you don't know. I mean, new groups are forming all the time that are and will be underrepresented, and it just opened the door to keep us from having to go back.
Yeah. Bob, is it okay if I change this the to A,
Yes,
as well as a Native American caucus, should it form? But I did like the verbiage that Judy gave, something about upon approval by the state executive committee or something like that. Can I add that? Okay. Okay. There's this. Now let's read through this. Make sure that it may make it a little bit bigger. That red on blue makes it a little bit harder to read.
yeah, I could see it.
Hasn't the Native American caucus already been approved, though? They just disbanded because for whatever reason. I don't.
Yeah. So yes and no. Yes, in the sense that if you consider that the other caucuses were approved, but one of my kind of gripes have been that in this original section, it created the affirmative action committee, but it didn't create the diversity caucuses. It referred to constituency organizations set forth in the affirmative action and outreach plan, which there never was there wasn't an affirmative action and outreach plan. That was like a big kind of like disagreement that, the old guard said, yes, we have this. And I'm like, well, where is it? Nobody could ever come up with it.
See 1972.
Yes. But we were in agreement that this language gave permission for the caucuses to join, to be created. So I like the idea of taking out this language right here and you know, and then have this language, or I mean, honestly, there it might be better to state the you know, the diversity caucuses are, and list, you know, the approved diversity caucuses instead of saying currently exist, and just say, you know, these diversity caucuses exist. And then put the caveat about the Native American caucus, and maybe actually I think that would be better, but for the cleanup, this might be enough for the immediate cleanup, and we can come back and then build out that section as well as provide some direction. Like that, like there's nothing in here that says when they're going to elect their chairs, or how many, you know, how many officers they're going to have, or, you know, what a member is. I mean, there's nothing in here about that. I mean, and they want that direction. When I can't say all of them, but many of them are like, what do we do, you know, and when do we have our elections? So this section really does, I think, need to be built out, and we probably need more time than we have right now. But if this kind of if this is enough to sort of like fix a few, put a Band-Aid on a few things, I think it's okay. But you know, what do you guys think?
You're taking out the Asian American Pacific Islanders?
Just put it, because it was mentioned up here first, I just spelled it out here so that I could just
Okay.
use the acronym down
Missed that
here.
part, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I did it while we were talking.
It looks good to me.
Maria, does this, do you think this, at least for the meantime, kind of allays your concern?
Yeah, I think it does for the meantime. Like you said, we might have to come back to it, but I think it looks good for now.
Okay. Yeah, I think that this section definitely needs a lot more work. All right. Anybody, do you think that we're at an agreement that we could vote on this section as is? Okay. Could I have a motion to accept the current listed, actually, we go up. So this will be, it'll be new 9, I believe. Okay, I have a motion to accept the changes listed here in new Article 9 as presented on the screen.
I so move,
I'll second it.
rather than trying to say all that all over again. Let's keep it short and sweet.
Okay, this is new. I'm trying to take notes too. Article 9. Okay. Is any further discussion on this section? Right. All in favor of adopting this new Article 9 as presented on the screen, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. That passes. All right. Wonderful. Got that out of the way. All right. This is another small section. It should just take for a sec. We created a new section a couple weeks ago under general provisions. These are basically things that were already somewhere else in the bylaws that really apply to everybody, and we're trying to just stick it in one area called general provisions. And so on the effective notice, just adding a caveat here on on effective notice, we already have, the time and place for all public meetings of the Democratic Party on all levels shall be publicized at least 14 calendar days preceding the meeting, except where nominations or elections for party office and positions and amending the bylaws, in which case 30 days notice will be provided. And then the additional piece of it is unless otherwise stated in West Virginia State Code or these bylaws. Now, the reason for that, and I think Bob can elaborate a little bit more because he's been focusing on the state code piece of it, but there are some somewhat obscure committees that can't, by state law, they have to meet within a certain amount of time. And we don't want to anybody saying that they're not, doing they're not meeting the bylaws by not giving 30-day notice when state law says they have to do 15-day notice. So I'm going to, Bob, can you elaborate on this a little bit? You're muted.
Bob, you're muted.
Bob, you're muted.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, if, for instance, if a House of Delegate member resigns, there's a 15-day period from the date of, I guess, the effective date of the resignation for the delegate district committee or county committee if the delegate district's entirely within one county to send 3 names to the governor for him to choose one of to appoint. Him being currently Jim Justice, but it could be a her, I guess. So that if we were having to give a 30-day notice, we wouldn't be able to meet that 15-day deadline. And the governor would be able to choose his own Democrat to appoint without paying attention to what the county committee wants or the delegate committee. And the same is true for senatorial, executive committees. And I guess those are the 2 main ones we would deal with.
Is that not mentioned anywhere else in the bylaws? It seemed like I read it somewhere about
Probably,
replacing.
it might be in current Article 5, which covers those district committees.
Just asking.
Hold on, I can look real quick. Well, it's harder for me since I'm sharing my screen, but if anybody has the bylaws pulled up, it should be in, I would imagine it's in Article 5 under the Congressional District Committee or something like that.
Let me look real quick.
The other thing that that I think that we have talked, well, I don't know if we've talked about this openly in this meeting or if they're just sort of side conversations I've had with different people, but well, actually, I think it was that we did have it open in this committee. Like when we were electing a secretary, should we have to, if we are electing somebody from within our own system, it's not somebody like a general Democrat from anywhere in the state could apply to or run for, should we have to give 30-day notice for that? Especially something small like a subcommittee, office election or something like that. And so we haven't done it, but we could, when we return to the subcommittee section later, we could say, subcommittee, elections, or internal committee elections only need 14-day notice or something like that. And so this would cover us, that they're otherwise stated in the bylaws somewhere.
Okay, in the Article 5, the members of the state senatorial district committee shall be elected in accordance with the provisions of the West Virginia Code, Chapter 3, Article 1, Section 9. So it's in the state code.
State code, yeah.
Okay.
But
I knew I'd read it somewhere.
But it also says, that's where it says that it says that in the event of a vacancy, then the no less than 14 days written notice for filling that vacancy in section 2. Or section A, part 2, subsection 2. State senator. Well, that's the congressional district committees. The state senatorial committee, it doesn't specify a time for filling those vacancies, but they do have, the names have to go to the governor within 15 days. And the same for county, and there's not a specific delegate district mentioned here, so we probably need to create delegate district committees. Because county committees only determine in the case of a delegate district that's entirely within a county, but so many these days overlap counties so that they can, they did them to both gerrymander and to equalize numbers.
Yeah, I went, not anything that I've sent out to everybody, but in the workshop doc that Mac and you and myself have been on, I put that in, I put one of those in there, and I just thought it was like too much too soon to but you're right, we need to build that in as we move forward.
Right.
And I think we're sort of like okay right now, because in the bylaws it says, you know, we obey all state law. So it's not like that's not covered, but it would be good to have that piece in the bylaws.
Yeah, we need to make sure all those pieces are, all those committees are full.
Yes. Yes.
One
So-
thing about this is that it's bothering me a little bit, and I'm not quite sure what the wording needs to be. Is that the state code doesn't specify any times for any period of time for notice. It just requires that the list of 3 names come within 15 days. So
Good point.
I'm not quite sure how that works into that. I think it's important to do that.
Okay, what I just know how to thought. What if it then would say, unless otherwise stated in these bylaws, or as needed to
Comply with state law.
State code.
code requirements. Would that do it?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Or at least it's much better than before, and I'd have to
Yeah.
rely on a lot, but
Yeah, for a committee, or as needed for a committee, to comply.
And it's under other, unless otherwise stated by these bylaws.
right, between stated, after
Yeah.
stated.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you need to put by
By or in,
either.
in or by, which one do you think sounds better? I'm thinking in, because bylaws, you know, just
Yeah.
semantics.
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
And if bylaws, or is needed for a committee to comply with West Virginia state code requirements, committee, or individual, because sometimes there's not often, but some situations where if the committee doesn't act, then the chair has to act within so many days to get somebody on the ballot or something like that. Okay. Well, we workshopped that very well, I think. Is everybody okay with that wording as it stands right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So going on down, this is still on effective notice. this green stuff, we've already approved. So here's, on open meetings. This section had been in Article, old Article 4. And now it's moving, so all this language is already in Article 4. We're just moving it to general provisions. And then the red are the changes. So all meetings of, instead of this being like the executive committee, it's the executive committees, including county committees, district committees, all the executive committees, and other party committees, caucuses, subcommittees, and recognized organizations. So I was trying to cover everybody, like everybody has to comply with this, shall be open to the public. And committees, however, and I think it should be sort of like a second separate sentence. Let me just put that down here. By majority of the members present and voting may go into executive session to discover legal, personal, discipline, and strategy or other confidential matters. All committee votes must be held in public session. The only thing I would add to that, if I did, is that there must be a motion to go into executive session and state the topic of that discussion. In the past, people have really abused executive session, go into executive session, do basically all of their business, have all the normal discussion they would have for an open meeting, but they have an executive session so that they don't have to have an open meeting. Come out of executive session and then quickly go through the agenda and just make motions, not have the normal discussion. Anyway, that we can add that, or we can say, well, let's leave it for later. I'm okay either one. Any thoughts, or any thoughts about this section at all?
Well, I gotta agree with you. If you're going to go into executive session, it should be done specifically for an item, and then come back out of executive session, or save that until the end, or do it in the beginning so that you're not bringing people in and out, because other things might come up later in further discussion that might want to be discussed in, private.
Do we want to tackle that now, or do we want to kind of boot that to after the state executive committee?
I think it's a really important point because, as you mentioned, executive session has been broadly abused. And I think it might be helpful, at least at this point, to mention in the bylaws that if you make a motion to go into executive committee, you must state the topic. I mean, there has to be specifics. I've seen people take whole meetings into executive session, then come out of the back room, tell us what happened. Motion passes, and nobody had any input.
Oh, I've been
How about if we say committees?
Hey, Bob, hold on just a second. I just realized Maria was holding her
Oh,
hand
I see
up
it.
and I didn't call it. Maria, just jump in. I apologize. I didn't see the hand.
Okay, no worries. I didn't want to cut anybody off. So that's the only reason I put my hand up for a second. I really think executive session is a crucial topic. I have seen it also be totally used inappropriately and not effectively, and in really hard ways. I propose that that is a deeper conversation, I feel, that we're going to want to take on probably all at once, unless we have really clear consensus of what language we want on it right now, or, one line. But my proposal, I think that we should go to the state executive committee with all of our proposed changes, and then with like a bike rack of sorts, or some people call it like a parking lot of topics that we anticipate taking up soon or next. And I think executive session could be one of those topics because, like I said, I feel that it's a very full very important thing for us to have robust discussion on. And so I wouldn't want to like necessarily rush it now. I would be amenable to putting one sentence in that addresses it if we want to have a placeholder for later, or I would very much support kind of recognizing it as a topic we want to take on, and that we tell the full executive committee, here's what we'll be taking on next or soon.
Thank you. Bob, what was your thought?
Right. I don't disagree with what Maria said. However, just in terms of working with what we have and maybe taking that now and saying and asking for more direction about what the executive committee wants, I think you could say committees, however, by motion stating the specific topic and majority vote, by motion stating the specific topic and then that would be what I would add in there. Okay. And with a majority, that's fine too.
Okay. Only thing that that I would change is that I don't like it. We just said that all meetings of all these committees, caucuses, subcommittees, and recognized organizations shall be open to the public. I think all of those organizations, committees and caucuses and everything should be held to the standard of executive session, going to executive session. So in other words, instead of figure out how to instead of it saying committees, and make sure that we're referring to all those things we just meant. And Maria, I don't know if your hand's still up from before or if that's new, but feel free to jump in.
I would just strike committees and have executive session, however, by motion stating the specific topic, blah, blah, blah. But remove committees, and that way it's a continuance of this sentence or the statements above.
Yeah, I think that might work. You have to capitalize, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it starts out, however, I think I'll just do away with this right now and leave this and put it back up there. We can come back to it, but I think that reads better.
Yeah, that's probably right. And then it's clear, it says we're talking about the same groups.
Mm-hmm. Then we go into executive session, legal participant strategy or other functional matters. All committee vote, all votes.
Yeah, just strike that.
To be held, in public session. All right, does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other thoughts on this section? Let me make this just a little bit smaller so you can see the whole section. So for this new Article 2 under general provisions, this section, any other discussion before we go to a vote? All right. Could I have a motion to accept new Article 2 general provisions, proposed amendments as presented on the screen? Any second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of accepting the new Article 2 amendments as they're presented on the screen, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Ooh, we are cooking with Crisco, I tell you what. All right. All right, so now this is going to be, let's see where we're at. It's 5:34. We've been on here for about an hour and we've got a lot done. This is, I think, I don't think it's sticky. I think it's, really good stuff. But it might goes a little bit more time if we're going to shoot for consensus, and I love consensus. Okay, so this is old Article 5, which would be new Article 6, I believe. Let me just put that in here. Sorry, I didn't do this earlier. Okay, so this is the section that covers their executive committees, like county executive committee, city. Before I learned the bylaws, I didn't know that you could have a city committee, but we can have a city committee. And then the district committees like delegate district, congressional district, and delegate district.
Do you realize that you can only have a city committee if the Republican Party agrees to have theirs also? Because
No,
we
I
tried to
didn't know
form
that.
one in Parkersburg. We had to replace a mayor, and there was a bunch of stink raised about people voting on who we sent the three names we sent, because some of them didn't live within the city limits proper.
Mhm.
So we were going to try to form a city committee, but we had to go to the Republican Party to do it. And that's when Cornelius was chair, and they didn't want to do it. So we couldn't form one.
Is that state law?
Apparently,
Bob, can you get on that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
yeah, we went through it.
Bless your heart. Okay, so this is the section on Section C is county executive committees. Everything in black is the stuff that's currently in there. And so we get down here, and this is additional language. And this is we always end up getting hung up on our offices. And I know that we already, we agreed last time on chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. However, there's been some further discussion about this. And so okay, so we're trying to have equal division. We're trying to fix the problem if we have the chair resigns, and does the vice chair move up? Currently it says that the vice chair calls for election, but if the vice chair is female, that it keeps a female from running for chair because they have to be equally divided. We think we fixed that. But what this suggestion is that now, and I also want to be very clear, if we want to adopt this does not go in effect right now. This is something that takes effect next term. All right. So everybody's got their vice chairs. They have their situation now. Nobody wants to upset that apple cart. But what we're trying to do is in the future, think about in the future. And so the thought is, what if we just don't have a vice chair? Then we don't have to worry about that equal division piece with them. And if we do away with the vice chair position, we still have the chair, and the secretary is the next highest ranking member. The secretary, and nobody would say, oh, the secretary automatically becomes chair, right? The secretary is just going to be a secretary. But the secretary is the next highest ranking member. The secretary would, in the event that the chair is absent, we're saying that they would automatically be the chair pro tem, and they would also be the interim chair if the position of chair is vacant. And so what that would do is you have a chair, you have your secretary and treasurer, and maybe a parliamentarian. We already said that they were going to be equally divided. And so the chair resigns. And we also said that yeah, all the officers equally divided. So the chair resigns, and that allows them to elect the chair of their choice, whether it's a male or a female or non-binary. They're not hung up on any of the equal division stuff, and we don't have the issue with the vice chair anyway. Right. So that is, I did talk to Mike about this today, and asked him his thoughts on it. He liked that idea. And I'm not saying Mike, Mike's the chair and we like that. And he said that he will support whatever we, whatever we do in the state executive committee confirms. But his belief is that a committee should be able to elect the chair that they want to elect. And I think we've sort of got there as well. So anyway, this is certainly open to discussion, and see if you hate it, we can do something else. But it's just an idea. And the other idea, and we're not going to touch this right now, but we can do this later, is how we can do this on the state executive level, is to do away with the vice chair position and then have 2 associate chairs. And so we'll have the same situation, there, except we have, 2 associate chairs to choose from instead of secretary and treasurer. But we don't have to talk about that now. We can talk about that later. So right now, that's just for counties. So thoughts on that?
In my specific instance, if this was the bylaw that we had to abide by, we would probably lose our secretary. Because I don't think she would want to be responsible for this should something happen to the chair. Like, she's happy being, well, I'm the secretary. So I'm also the vice chair. So does it matter? No, never mind.
Well, and it's hard enough to find a secretary as it is anyway. Nobody wants the job.
Nobody wants to do it.
Secretary is the hardest job. It is. It's the hardest job.
A lot falls on you as secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking Deirdre was our secretary, but she's our treasurer. So forget I do 2 things. So I'm just thinking, when you elect a vice chair, they understand that their potential duty in the future is to assume the role of the chair. That's kind of just why they're there, except, in my case. So I'm just thinking, do people who volunteer to be a secretary want to assume the mantle of potentially having to be the chair for a while? Does that dissuade people from stepping up and offering to be a secretary? I don't know,
Potentially that would only be a 30-day thing, though. I mean, you would give notice. You would report to the Secretary of State that the chair resigned, give notice, elect a new chair. So basically it would be 1 meeting that the secretary would have to be pro tem.
Yep.
And then the next meeting you would hold an election, which she would have to oversee. But I mean, it's not like it would be for months, I don't think.
And how many organizations do not have a vice chair position? Like, is this groundbreaking?
Well, the state code says that it's in their required offices. They require county executive committees to elect a chair, a secretary, and a treasurer. Those are the 3. The only and I'm not as confident saying this as what I just said about state code, but I'm pretty sure in Robert's rules, an organization, the only thing you have to have is a chair and a secretary. And then if you have money, like you might just have a garden club and you get together and garden, you only have to have those 2. But if you start raising money, then you have to have a treasurer. So that only a chair and a secretary. And then in really, really small groups, you don't even have to have a secretary. The chair can act as a secretary. So I I mean, I don't know how many Democratic organizations don't have a vice chair, but it's not unheard of, writ broad in terms of organizations.
Mhm. Well, it might be an actual relief not to have elections where you're looking around the room for somebody to raise their hand to be a vice chair. And-
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, people won't self-nominate.
Yep.
They'll wait for and hope somebody will nominate them for the
Yep.
position, but they won't do it themselves.
And the other thing is if they really want to have a vice chair, or if they want to have like that discussion we had with Mac, he made some really good points about having different types of vice chairs, vice chair for recruitment and vice chair for, I don't know, other things, fundraising or something like that. They still, right here, according to state code, because the state allows them to create other officers, but it also says, no, wait, here we go. County committees may adopt and amend bylaws in accordance with Article 12 of these bylaws, which basically is just the amendments that are not in conflict with charter, DNC bylaws, blah, 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 blah. So, and we've already said that they may adopt other officers. So
It says offices there instead of officers.
where?
The second line down there.
Yeah.
From where you are now. Well, nope.
Oh, down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creation of additional.
Offices. Yeah, I sometimes I've used officers before, and then I've had parliamentarian people read it and say, it's really an office, but you have officers fill the office. But
Okay, that's fine with me. I just was making sure.
it doesn't. I'm not going to die on that hill, but that's the reason I put it that way. But I can change
Okay.
it if you guys want me to.
Nah,
Like you say, it's not a hill we want to die on.
as long as it's intentional, that's fine with me. I just didn't know if it was intentional.
Gotcha.
So in other words, the state's not going to require the counties to have a vice chair, but if a county decides that they want to elect a vice chair, then it would not be against the bylaws for them to do so.
Right.
That's correct.
They'd have to make.
So this really isn't
put it in
changing
their
a whole lot.
bylaws, but
Mhm. I guess the only other thing is I guess what this doesn't cover is if they do elect a vice chair.
well, the vice chairs would have to have some particular purpose. This provides that the secretary would serve as chair pro tem, not a vice chair.
Right.
So,
Yeah, in the bylaws, they say that the vice chair has such duties as the chair gives them, and it should be more defined than that, because if they don't have any duties, they're not going to do anything.
Right.
or maybe
Well,
they would do it because it doesn't have any duties.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think what the part about the not having the vice chair succeed that bothers me is people end up with, and not Deb McCarthy, but often people have like a token vice chair, like they just put somebody in and say, oh, look, and often, I mean, this is what I've seen in the past, and this is nothing against anybody in particular, but you have the chair, and then they give somebody a vice chair position as sort of like a political, olive branch, like that's really something to have, oh, we're going to make you the vice chair. We've disagreed on a lot of things and whatever, and really want us to come together. So here, we want this person to be the vice chair, but there's no power that goes with it. So basically you have somebody sitting in a position that has no power, and it's just basically a token olive branch, and I'm not saying that's not politically helpful at times, but it's also, when we're trying to do other things, maybe it's not the best thing. I don't know.
They
All right,
still
so-
should have a purpose of some
I
sort.
agree. Yeah, I agree. All right, so are we happy with this paragraph right here? I see heads nodding, but I don't, and speak up if you don't. And keep them, I think this is a really important, maybe I'll highlight, put this in bold, to make sure people know that that is not until 2026. Okay, the second part of it, we mentioned county committees may adopt and amend bylaws in accordance with Article 7, which I think will be Article 8, but I'm just going to highlight that for my own purposes. I'll know to go
That was
and
Article
look
12.
at that. Yeah, 12. Current Article 12 is bylaw amendments. Bob,
I'm sorry.
is current, tell me what article number current, the very last article is. Is it 12?
For amendments. Let
Mhm.
me see. Yeah, I think so. Actually, it's current Article 11.
Okay, all right, then this is correct.
Yeah, it didn't go to 12.
Oh crap, I don't know what I just did. Okay, all right, that's correct. Okay, that are not in conflict with the charter bylaws, West Virginia bylaws, or, well, these bylaws, that means we don't need that. Okay, or West Virginia State Code. Such bylaws may allow for the creation of additional offices. County committee bylaws shall be provided to each member and the West Virginia State Executive Committee within 1 month of their adoption and or amendment.
I think we need to have these laws listed in there as they can't be conflicted, these bylaws.
We do right here, that are not in conflict with the charter DNC bylaws, with these bylaws. So these current bylaws.
Yeah, but these bylaws that relates to Article 12.
Oh, okay. With the WVDP bylaws, how's that?
It's still Article 12, but
Oh,
it does, we need to have
I see what
WVDP
you, yeah.
bylaws.
Okay,
these
I
bylaws.
had it right to begin with and messed it up.
Yeah, and you took them
I'm
out.
sorry. I'm glad we got a lawyer on our side. Okay. You're right. Okay. All right, everybody okay with this section right here? Or this paragraph? Or
Yes.
any objection to it? Just speak out. Okay. All right, these other ones are just like little tiny things. This section, or this 40 thing right here, back before the March 2021 amendments, bylaw changes were made. At that time, the only notice that was required for meetings was 5 days notice, including any meeting, elections and everything. And so when they changed that, through the bylaw amendments that we agreed to with the MOU, they did change that, but this was just an area that just got left out, kind of like the nightmare that Judy had, where it said 2 different things in 2 different places. This is just this 5 days just never got changed, and so it should have been changed. 30 days is what the notice is. However, if what this situation is, and we actually had this in Fayette County, where we had our organizational meeting and there was a tie for the treasurer position. And so what that 5 days referred to was back then, where you had 5 days to call another meeting and then have another election. Well, really you need 30 days to have another election, but from one meeting, if you're going to have another meeting in the next month, it's really hard. Let's say your meeting goes till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's very hard to properly notice that meeting. So that 10 days is just a little bit of a cushion to give a county committee enough time to, give them a few days to do an effective notice. So they basically have 40 days to then, it doesn't have to be 40. I just felt like it needs to be more than just 30. But anyway, that's where that came from. So before we go on, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that 40 days also, when you're talking about the elections themselves, a lot of times between the election and the organizational meeting, there isn't 30 days. So by giving 40 days, it makes it more possible for them to actually be able to give notice.
Mm-hmm.
Because the time period would be too short.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you like the 40 days works for you?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Deb, you okay? Maria, Ray, any thoughts?
I'm good.
No, I think the 40 days is good.
Okay.
We have run into the 30-day like rest time frame. It makes it hard.
Okay. All right. This is just a pronoun correction. Then this is just a clarification of, who can make the notice. So basically what happens if the county committee doesn't make the decision on, if they can't break their tie, then it goes to the chair to make a decision. And so this section, and they have to make it by mail. And we can change that if we want to. So it says such a deciding vote may be cast by mail and shall be final. If such a vote is cast by mail, it shall be registered and sent to the outgoing chair. If the office of the chair is not settled, or acting chair, if there is no chair or outgoing chair of any such committee. So it doesn't read really well, but the point is that, if there's not a chair, basically, you have your acting chair can do that.
I'm not quite sure how I would fix it, but I can see how that might be a little bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me or?
I think this comma needs to go away. What do y'all think?
That's what I was just going to say. Make it a period, start another sentence.
Oh, okay. I was gonna have it be a run-on sentence, but no.
Make it a period. And then if the office of chair is not settled, the acting chair may chair is not settled. The acting chair. Oh my gosh, now we're messing up.
What does that mean? It's not settled.
So
If tie vote, they can't.
Mm-hmm. If the office that we're having problems with settling, there's a tie vote, is the chair of office. I mean, I'm the office of chair. Sorry.
Okay.
So in our situation, it was the treasurer, and we had our chair working on it. But what if the tie vote had been the chair?
Which it almost was in Wood County. When we had the original vote, I won by 1 vote.
If such a vote is cast by mail, it shall be registered and sent to the outgoing chair. If the office of chair is not settled.
Now, yeah, it's not a sentence anymore.
I know that's where we need to restate something here. If the office of chair is not settled and there is an acting chair, or if there is no chair or outgoing chair of some chair. Oh man, it might just need to be a run-on sentence. Such a vote is cast by mail shall be registered and sent.
What do we want to have happened?
Or
We want it to go to the outgoing chair. If the office of chair is not settled.
This is what I think. Why don't we
I
take,
think-
why don't we say this? Why don't we change this to email and say that it goes to all the members?
Some members don't have email.
You're
I
right.
have had, there's a couple members on the Wood County Democratic Committee that are not tech savvy.
Okay, so why don't we go mail or email, confirm to email or USPS mail and go to all members. I mean, this is a rare situation that probably, that, you know, it's not like we're gonna run up the postage by, I mean, like probably if it happened in Kanawha County, it might be a problem. Well, not really, because if we are allowing email, most people have email.
Registered letters, it costs $11 to send a registered letter now.
oh yeah.
Well, let's take it out. Let's take the registered off then.
Yeah.
Is that
if it's
okay?
coming from the state executive committee, they can cast their vote via email. Like we have before.
Oh, no, they're not voting. This is just an announcement that the chair,
It would be the chair's vote for whatever office is not settled.
yeah. So we were wanting Mike to pick our treasurer because we couldn't come to an agreement.
Well, that was what I was talking about. Where it says chair of the state executive committee or by someone appointed by them for the specific purpose where such a deciding vote may be cast by email and shall be final. So that's if there's a tie and you can't come to agreement where somebody changes their vote, it has to be done by the executive committee.
Email to all members.
Or you, should I put USPS and mail to all members and contested candidates.
Yeah.
Should that be contesting candidates?
I don't know.
No, if you're sending the mail out to all contested candidates.
I think you should just strike the whole last sentence there.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. You guys okay with that?
Because that's the part where people could get confused.
Mhm. Okay, so let's look at that again.
That cleans
In the
it up.
election of a chair or any other officer of the committee, there is a tie vote, and it cannot be settled by the members of the committee themselves within 40 days from the date fixed for their first meeting. Then, in that event, the deciding vote shall be cast by the chair of the state executive committee or by someone appointed by them for that specific purpose. Such a deciding vote may be cast by email or USPS mail to all members and contested candidates. Let me just put confirmed. No, no, that doesn't work.
Hmm. That's good right there.
Okay.
Email to a confirmed address.
Yes. Say it again, Bob.
Email to a confirmed address. After email.
You took buyout.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I think the or should come out there. I'll get it.
Mhm.
To a confirmed email to a confirmed address. Or USPS.
I'm gonna put email address here.
Yeah,
Yes, but
or USPS address to all members and contested candidates.
shall be final. Now, I can tell you Mike was not happy at all at being in a situation where he was supposed to make this decision. So maybe we can come back to this and figure out a better way of dealing with contested elections than ask, I mean, and the reason I say that is, the chair of the committee is all about bringing people together, big tent, and then in a situation where they have to pick between this. So it might be, we might want to come back to this and, have a certain committee do that or something like that, be the final decision maker, and not make it, not put the chair in that position.
Isn't that is that in the state code though?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I don't
Bob,
know. I don't
can you
know.
figure that out?
The only part of the, well, here. Well, this is going to be fun.
Well, I'm okay. Kind of like, and if we do have the option to change it, we can do that later. But all right, so let me just read this to see how it sounds now. Such a deciding vote may be cast by email to a confirmed email address or mailed to a USPS address to all members and contested candidates and shall be final. That work? Deb's like,
Did you take out confirm before USPS?
I must have, or to a, let me put that back. I don't know if I just used it for the other one. I don't remember taking it out. Confirmed email to a confirmed email address or mail to a confirmed USPS address to all members and contested candidates. Cast.
Yeah.
I'll put, how about we take out by mail and put in writing? I think that would read better.
Just perusing it, I don't see it in there. But I'd have to sit down and read it.
All right. So to deciding vote may be cast. Meant to strike that instead of underline it. Second time I've done that now. Okay, may be cast. Such a deciding vote may be cast in writing to a confirmed email address or mailed to a confirmed USPS address to all members and contested candidates and shall be final. I think that does it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. This is the part about meetings. County committees shall meet at least one time during each quarter of the calendar year. I just changed notice to effective notice because we've been using that language. Effective notice of such meeting shall be given to the local newspaper and posted on the state party website. I struck given to the state chair. And we may want to, Bob and I both agreed that, not everybody has a local newspaper, and we might want to come back and, list other options than that. But I think that would take a longer discussion, but for our triage, I think it's fine.
We
So
posted it on our webpage, but not every county has a webpage.
right.
Right.
Provided in case of emergency meetings, not allowing sufficient notice, such notice shall be as reasonable as possible. And then we're going to get down into some other stuff. But in terms of these meetings, this part of it is, how does that sound for folks?
Yeah, people could be notified by phone. I used to call everybody.
I think people should call, but I also think they should get something in writing, don't you?
Well, and two, you're supposed to send out a notification is supposed to go by mail if a person does not have a computer.
Mhm.
That's what it said in the old bylaws anyway, that they were to be notified by email or mail, USPS mail, their choice.
We do-
Well, and we still have that too. We have that under general provisions.
Okay.
So we still have that piece of it. I'm sorry, Deb, did you start to say something?
We do all of it. We do snail mail, we do email, we do Facebook posts, and I put it in the newspaper.
Gotcha.
It's a lot.
I do snail. We do all of it except snail mail. I only do snail mail to one person because he doesn't have email, and so I do everybody else's email and then snail mail to him, which keeps you on the toes because it's Ray.
I have a question. Deb, you mentioned about Facebook. Do you think, do you feel that it is a reliable source to get the message out? Because again, coming from personal experience, I know that personally, Facebook is watching me.
Mhm.
And because of the algorithms, sometimes the message doesn't get out. And I'm sure in this case here, of what we're talking about, this subject matter, maybe it won't get to the person, to the recipient that we wanted to go to. Now, I know that in my job, what we do is once the decision is made, we notify by email and by letter mail also to go out. That way, I mean, of course, we go based on the address that is presented to us.
Mhm.
And then we send the word out, send the message out, and that's it. But I mean, social media, I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's nice and all. This is my personal opinion. I'm not too fully keen on it because of Fred Zuckerberg and his algorithms.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I don't
Messenger
depend on it
works.
as our only source of notification. Never would do.
Right.
That. It's mostly to make it an open meeting for the public. So to our members, they get email, they get snail mail. For the public, I put it in the newspaper, I put it on Facebook, and I tag people, that I know are interested to keep the ripple effect going. You join us and bring a friend. So that's been working pretty well. We always have guests at our meetings.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't depend on Facebook for the only notice. Would never do that.
I mean, if Facebook is a good tool,
Yeah.
I mean,
We
then
have like 1,200.
keep
We
going.
have like 1,200 people following us on our Facebook page for the executive committee.
Okay.
Awesome.
I just don't want the message to get out on social media again and it falls on deaf ears because someone says, I never saw this, or I never saw that. And because again, you're speaking from personal experience.
Well,
Yep.
and it can get buried too. The notification could be put on Facebook,
Sure.
but you get other posts that come in and unless it's pinned, it
Right.
gets buried down in
Yes.
everything else.
Right.
Well, I don't know how I just did that. I agree. I don't think, I think I agree with everything that you guys have just said. I don't, it's a good idea for it to be, the only notice, but if you have it and you got people following you, it's not bad to, use that for additional notice.
I would
I
actually
really,
feel remiss if it wasn't there. I think I would feel like I was dropping the ball if I didn't put it there because so many people look there. So,
mhm.
yeah.
I really have no idea how I made that pink just now, and I apologize for that, but it is pink, and I'll figure it out later. Okay.
Did we
so
lose Marie?
She texted me and said she had some unstable connections and she was trying to get back on.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't seen a pop up that she's trying. Let me just look in participants and. Yeah, I don't see her trying to get in, but she said she was having some difficulty. Okay, so moving on, that was a good discussion. This it has to do with vacancies. Anybody that you probably have gotten lots of emails from me, especially last year, going, "Hey, we've got all these, a lot of the county executive committees had vacancies. There a lot of the district committees, congressional committees, all of those had tons of vacancies. I mean, we literally had some county committees that didn't have one person, that it had nobody ran for them, and so we were recruiting on them. And then I was very to me, it's important in terms of democracy to have vacancy filled before you elect your officers. And so, so these vacancies are important. And what ends up happening is, I'm not saying every county, but a lot of counties, they have vacancies and they just ignore them. And then all of a sudden you have an election or something like going up in Mon County right now, where Delegate Walker is resigning. Or resigned. I think she resigned today, and we have to have this delegate, committee, which is their state executive, their county executive committee is their committee, to choose that, and you got to fill vacancies, right? And but if those vacancies are already taken care of, you don't have to worry about it being a political moment, where you're jockeying for position and that sort of thing. You have your vacancies filled. You're doing that all along and doing your outreach. So this piece is to basically tell county committees, if you got vacancies, that needs to be your first order of business. Really, is to fix that. So underneath meetings is this bullet point, which would be like I or something like that. Elections to fill vacancies on the committee shall be effectively noticed prior to conducting any new business. If the chair fails to notice an election to fill a vacancy, any member may notice the election to fill a vacancy. The order of filling vacancies shall be district members of county committee offices, a delegate district committee, state senatorial district committee, and congressional district committee. So it would be in that order. Now, this does not prevent a county committee from doing new business, but it does force them to, you have to give notice. So let's say that you've given your 30-day notice and nobody wants that position, that you haven't been able to find anybody that will run for that position. Well, you noticed it so you can do your business, but then guess what? You have to notice it again. And you have to keep noticing it until you fill that position. But if you don't notice it, then your hands are tied. You're not going to be able to do business. So that might be a little harsh, but it would force people to fill the vacancies. So before we move on, let's get thoughts on that.
My first thought is it's a an invitation to just put warm bodies on your committee, just to fill the spot so you can move forward. And oh man, have we dealt with that here in the past? Just a
Well, you
thought.
don't have to put them on.
Yeah.
You just have to notice it. You have to give people an opportunity to run.
Okay.
But it takes a majority vote to put people on. So if, I can see what you're saying though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think committees need some kind of incentive, imperative to fill their seats. There are more vacant seats than there are filled seats on Democratic executive committees in the state of West Virginia. I'm pretty sure.
And again, we're not saying you have to fill them. We just have to say you can't ignore it. You have you have to put out a notice.
You have an obligation to make
You have
the
an obligation to attempt.
fill
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Yes.
Now
Exactly.
you're required to list like if it's A, 3, A5, do you have to list the district itself?
And
Well,
female.
I think we should. Yeah, we don't specify that, but in probably in effective notice, let's go down. Let's look at effective notice.
Because I had the question, if we're supposed to advertise and fill our vacancies, shouldn't we advertise those vacancies every time we give notification for a meeting? And if that's the case, then you would have to give a 30-day meeting notice instead of a 14, because you still have vacancies on your committee.
Well, you would have to do a 30-day notice for, yeah, you're right. If you have vacancies and you're noticing the vacancies, yes, you'd have to give, until you filled that, you'd have to give 30-day notice. So we don't have this in effective notice, but wherever we have in our new 6 basic elements, our new Article 1 that has 6 basic elements in it. Well, here it is. These are those 2 things that you talked about before. In the 6 basic elements, number 5 is the Democratic Party in each state. I think now it says the West Virginia Democratic Party should publicize fully and in such a manner as to assure notice of all interested parties a full description of the legal and practical procedures. Can you hold on just a second? I need to tell my mom something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something that I brought up that was asked of me about notifications. And I mentioned it to Shane, and Shane spoke to the new chair about it. And he was not pleased. And he's never done the notifications that way. He just says after 60 days, he's allowed to name whoever he wants, that's not right.
Not right. I'm sorry, I came in just the end of it, but yeah, a lot of people say that they can do that and they can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got distraction. But anyway, fully publicize in a manner as to assure notice to all interested parties a full description of the legal and practical procedures for selection on all levels. Publication of these procedures should be done in a fashion that all prospective and current members will be fully and adequately informed of the pertinent procedures in time to participate in the selection procedures at all levels. So that has to do with procedures. Then the other one, Element 6, the Democratic Party in the state should publicize fully in such a manner as to assure notice to all interested parties a complete description of all positions as officers and representatives of the state party. Such publication be done in a timely fashion, blah, 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 blah. So when you publish a full description, that would include what you're talking about, Judy. Like we have magisterial districts, you have, I think you call them county districts or something.
No,
like
they're
that.
magisterial with us too. We have
You're
three.
okay. Yeah. So if my position on my county committee was open, it would, people would have to know it's the New Haven district, female or non-binary, and have to be a registered voter. What are the if I have any legal obligation? I mean, really, it can be quite complicated if we did it really, really well. But I have responsibilities for choosing, approving poll workers, and on our county, when our county acts as a delegate district person, people should know when they're going to run for something, what are all the obligations that they have. So when you do really, really proper notice, it includes all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. In ours, we have A, B, and C in our magisterials, and then we have A through 1 through 8 districts within each of those.
Mm.
So we have 48 seats on our committee.
On your county committee?
Mm-hmm. Only
Yeah.
39 of them are filled, but that, not all of them go.
That's a lot.
Yeah. What county's a big county?
So here's, I guess we're starting to run out of time, and we don't have to do this piece right now. If we feel like this needs to be workshopped some more, we need to have more discussion. Maybe we want to ask the county committees we don't want the county committees to hate us. We could just take this out. This is not going to make or break any. We can always come back to this piece of it.
That's one we could pin.
Mm-hmm.
Like she wanted to do, because you need to have some kind of idea of what kind of description you're going to need to advertise.
Mhm.
I didn't put any description down for the members at large, but for the officers, I put descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So
But I'm going to.
Why don't you move that to a comment?
Well, I think what I'm going to do is strike it, and then that way I can come through and copy and paste it into another document later. But it won't be in any way implied that we're approving that right now.
Okay.
But I think we do need to have some more discussion about that. And then this is already there, special meetings can be called with 33% of the members if the chair is not calling a meeting. And then Mac added this, and I thought this was a really good, so if a state executive committee fails to meet its obligation to fill a vacancy on the committee within 60 days of the vacancy occurring, the state chair may appoint a replacement, and we're adding from applicants for the position solicited by publication of the vacancy with 30 days public notice.
So that infers that he just can't choose someone from the general public. It has to be a person who responded from a notice.
Basically,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
I'm sorry, I lost my place. Here, I just added like a number, and this is just a small technical thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, does that look okay?
mhm.
Okay.
On that last one, from this committee, meaning the county committee, should be made to the state board of appeals, state executive committee board of appeals. I'm not even sure what that applies to. Oh,
Well,
okay. Yeah, it applies to county committees. That should be probably say state board of appeals because there's no county board of appeals. State committee board of appeals or something.
well, the Board of Appeals are identified in the bylaws, and in other places, it's just listed as Board of Appeals. So like every one of these district committee, congressional, they all end with shall be made to the Board of Appeals. So my recommendation would be let's leave it the way it is right now. And then when we
Okay.
come back to this, so that we're not making any, unevenness throughout it. But I think this is sort of, in terms of this committee, it's like this section on county committees.
Yeah.
Maybe it should say these committees. I think that would work better.
Or just say county committee.
Okay.
A county committee.
And again, we can come back to it, but it bothers me that it talks about an appeal, but it doesn't doesn't say in here you can file a grievance, and and the county committee hears it, and then if you're not happy with it, you appeal. But we can come back. That will take probably a whole meeting in and of itself to figure out our grievance appeals process. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any other thoughts, conversation? I think you're the one that makes that pink somehow, Bob. I don't know how you do it. Oh, I bet.
I didn't do it.
Well, you said you
Not
didn't do it.
pink on mine either.
Okay. All right. Everything in pink people agree with. No, actually, is there anything in this right hand that any other discussion before we move to a vote? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to accept the information on, let's see, new Article 6 on the County Executive Committee as presented on the computer at this time?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Only with the stipulation that we address the one big paragraph that was struck through at a later date.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor of accepting the edits as presented on the screen for new Article 6, as presented on screen, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, all right, that is approved. All right, so I think the last thing is we had this really great motion that somebody made. I'm not sure if it was Mac or Bob or who made it last time to send all of our edits to the State Executive Committee with a recommendation for them to accept it. Does anybody remember that motion or would like to make a similar motion now?
Yeah, let's see.
Well, we've already got everything else, so really it would be just the things on this all together here.
Right. Well, I'd move that we send all the changes that we've made so far in our committee meetings to the state executive committee with a recommendation that they be approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that all the changes that we have made so far, we send those to the state executive committee with a recommendation that they be approved. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all right, that is adopted. Awesome. All right, so just to kind of sum up what we said before, I think it was May 25th, we're going to notice and have an election on May the 25th for a new chair for this committee. And on May 13th, which is we anticipate that be the state executive committee, there will be a notice for the state executive committee to elect a member from congressional district 2, male or non-binary, to be a member here on this committee. And our next meeting is going to be on it. That will be our next meeting is April the 27th. That'll give us a couple weeks to sort of breathe. And anyway, we'll come back and we'll have a couple months that we can be working on things to get ready for the next executive committee and kind of go a little bit deeper dive into the areas that we've said that we wanted to come back to. Any other thoughts or questions or anything from anybody right now?
Nope. I'd move we adjourn.
I
Well,
second that.
all right. I want to thank each and every one of you for all the hard work. This has been a very, very busy and what's the word? Prolific.
Productive.
Prolific. I was saying prolific committee. I mean, we put in a lot of time and we've pushed out a lot of work and really, really good work. I think that is anyway. I think we've done really, really good work. So thank you all for that. And thank you to the folks that are not on the call with us now. I'd like to also thank Shane and Zandy, who I thought did a really great job leading us in the work that we were doing, and he will be missed, I'm sure. I'd also like to thank.
I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
thank Selena for all the really hard work she's done in getting all this computer stuff together.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
All the work she continues to do on these bylaws.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Ryan, thank you so much for, you know what, I can stop sharing my computer screen. All right. Ryan, thank you so much for being on and handling everything behind the scenes for us today and taking care of all the YouTube and stuff like that. I really appreciate it. I'm sure all of us do. So thank you very much. All right. And so with that,